Welcome to the News Week. Well, it's quite evident at this point that the attempted murder and tender fraud accused Vusimusi cat Matlala relied on several allegedly crooked cops to seal a tainted 360 million rand SAPS health services tender. The question now, though, is who from the Medicare 24 stable of companies, yes, it wasn't just one, backed the notorious figure in his bids? In other words, our multi-award-winning journalist and author Mike Wicks asks, who exactly is Mike van Wyk?
Vusimusi has been central in two scandals. It's the blue light scandals at the Ekurhuleni Metro Police Department, and it's his police tender. And Mike is intrinsically involved in both. Mike and Vusimusi Matlala were in business with one another, and we found that Mike became the interface not only for the work undergoing for his police tender, but also for this odd memorandum of understanding which provided top cover for Matlala to use blue lights in his security vehicles.
In our trending topic, a pensioner appears in court for the Bellville South House of Horrors murder. And finally, the UN started taking stronger action against apartheid South Africa with On This Day in SA history.
New episodes of The Lead air Monday through Thursday at 7 p.m.
Our question for Roby's Pointless Brian Quiz today: give us the new name of the Eastern Cape city where protesters ran amok this Monday. I'll give you the answer a little later. My name's Graeme Robenheimer, this is The Lead, and this is the South African story. Moving to our top story today. Well, he's riding high from clinching two major awards in recent days. His third Taku Kuiper Investigative Journalism Award and the very first For Tomorrow Award launched by Asset Manager 91. All for his dogged investigations, of course, into the Tembisa hospital tender scam as well as the exploits at large of one Vusimusi cat Matlala. He's Mike Wicks, and a congratulations is most definitely in order. How are you doing, good sir?
Oh, thank you, Graeme. It's still somewhat surreal, and it's a huge honor to have your work acknowledged. I mean, we didn't get into this industry to be loved or make friends, so it's nice when it does happen, and it's completely unexpected.
Yeah, absolutely. And enjoy this moment. You know, they don't come around very often, and of course it's always down to, you know, the extent of the stories that we get to cover. Some stories, you know, fly under the radar and maybe don't do as well as we envisage them to. Other times they change the complete narrative of South African current affairs of today, and that's exactly what your reporting has managed to do. And it sometimes takes, you know, up to 20 years in a journalist's career to get to this point. So when we have them, we really actually do have to stop and go, flipping out, man, I made it this far, and I hope you've done that.
Yeah, no, I have, and I fully agree with you. These are, you know, they are outliers in our circumstance, and I'm grateful for the acknowledgement.
Let's talk Mike van Wyk. Okay, so you've pointed it out in our latest video report for News 24. It's a name that has come up fairly often at the Matlala Commission and in Parliament in recent months. But to be fair, you'd have to be a pretty avid watcher every single day. And of course, we do have those in South Africa, people who watch commissions all the time, and notwithstanding journalists, of course, to hear that name and to let your ears prick up and go, who exactly is this gentleman, Mike van Wyk, and why is it so critical that we know a little bit more about him in his relation to his closeness to Vusimusi cat Matlala? So the question is, who is Mike van Wyk, Jeff?
So Mike van Wyk is a figure who we've traced in close proximity to Vusimusi Matlala for several years at this point. And, you know, to place him in context, the perfect way to do it is, you know, Vusimusi has been central in two scandals. It's the blue light scandals at the Ekurhuleni Metro Police Department, and it's his police tender. And Mike is intrinsically involved in both. Mike and Vusimusi Matlala were in business with one another, and we found that Mike became the interface not only for the work undergoing for his police tender, but also for this odd memorandum of understanding which provided top cover for Matlala to use blue lights in his security vehicles. Mike has been with Vusi every step of the way, and as we follow this case going forward and understand that, you know, prosecutions have been instituted, I'm sure more arrests will follow. As that happens, we need to understand exactly where Mike fits in, and Mike is in the middle of it all.
Yeah. So you explained in the video for News 24 that he helms up a larger dare we call it a corporate set of companies, or the flagship company called Medicare 24, and he essentially is the main sort of center point throughout all of these various franchises. And did Vusimusi Matlala just make up the head of one particular franchise, although on paper he didn't say so? Help us understand that.
Yeah, so Kat was basically a franchisee in every sense of the word, because he founded Medicare 24 Tshwane district, which is obviously an offshoot of the larger Medicare group. And if we try and understand Van Wyk's version of the story, he's in a position of influence at the group. But the issue became when they bid for this tender, and Vusimusi was the face of Medicare 24 Tshwane district, his bid submissions told something of a different story. His bid submissions made it seem as if he was the president of the entire group. And that's problematic for two reasons, because it's a red flag for fronting. And the second is that in terms of the contract, Matlala would have had to specify if he had any third-party supplier agreements at the time of the bid. He didn't specify that. And when people started asking questions based off our reporting about the probity of this tender, those were one of the questions that they asked was, were there declarations? And on the version of the documents that we have and what's been said publicly so far is that there was no declaration. So they've fallen foul in several respects there. And, Mike is a center pivot for this story, and that's why we've honed in on him, and that's why we believe he's important.
And you've shared these videos of Mike introducing the Ekurhuleni Metro Police Department, then head Julius Mkhwanazi. Do you know to whom Mike is introducing Julius to at the time? And it just sort of blows my mind that we can have the head of the Metro Police Department next to this gentleman that is so close to the cat and everything that we know thus far. Here's a clip from that interaction I just referenced.
He's the head of the EMPD on this side. I think this is a person I would love to introduce you, so you can have a one-on-one with him, so that your transport problems can be sorted out. He also have all the contacts for Tshwane in JMPD due to his rank and everything. So I would just like to introduce you to Julius, and then we all can get together and you guys can talk, and it's a good connection to have.
I think what the footage, at least, of Julius Mkhwanazi makes clear is that Mike and Julius were very close. And it wasn't only Matlala who had the relationship with Julius. And, Julius has said publicly before the commission that, he and Matlala were like brothers. That's how close they were. And obviously that flies in direct contradiction to what he said publicly prior to the commission. He said he didn't know him. So, that's a central touch point for us in trying to unpick this further. And, it tells us that the relationship was by no means a secret. He filmed them both and introduced him to this person named George. And we will at some point try to get to the bottom of who exactly George is.
For those also casually watching thus far, who's the other gentleman that is flanking Vusimusi Matlala in the dock alongside the 12 cops that were arrested last week, Jeff? Who is that gentleman, and how does he form part of the whole picture in relation to Mike?
So that's James Murray, and he was also in a position of influence within the Medicare group, and also formed part of the buttress of Matlala's bid. He was involved in the SAPS work, and this is where this entire story becomes problematic, is because lines have been blurred. There's no clear organizational structure, because obviously someone fluffed this story somewhere to get a tender. So there's no corporate structure we can draw on, because it seems like it was completely thrown out the window. Kat was positioned as the group president, but he wasn't a man alone. He had neither the skills nor the ability to execute this tender, and he fell back on people like James Murray and Mike van Wyk.
Yeah. So then, perhaps somebody is asking at this point, then why hasn't Mike been charged for anything thus far? Is that too much of a salacious question to put forward at this point?
No, I think it's important. I mean, given all the public testimony we've heard so far, Mike van Wyk's name has been mentioned an innumerable amount of times. And it was odd to see him not arrested in the dock. But what we've since learned from public statements that Mike has made is that he's been cooperating with law enforcement. So it appears that he's gone in that direction. So it's difficult to label him as a whistleblower. I certainly wouldn't do that. But I would say that he is going to be an integral part, it would appear, given what we know at this stage, he's going to be an integral part of the prosecutions that could follow this tender scandal.
Meanwhile, the big question today, Jeff, for many South Africans is, who in fact is our National Police Commissioner. Of course, it does, on paper, remain to be Fani Masemola until the President or the Acting Police Minister declares otherwise. We know that there needs to be a board of inquiry into whether or not the Commissioner can be suspended in light of the fact that the NPA's investigating Directorate Against Corruption had issued that summons just last week following the main court case for the National Police Commissioner to appear later in court to be charged in April. So just to clear the air at the moment, can you tell us what Masemola is specifically being charged in relation to the now cancelled 360 million rand SAPS Health Services tender, and why was the summons issued to be charged later? Do you know?
So, he will face charges of alleged violations of the Public Finance Management Act. And, just to really cut to the quick of this, the issue is that as an accounting officer, of which he's the accounting officer of SAP, so the buck stops with him. He is enjoined to take any steps to prevent fruitless, wasteful, or irregular expenditure as a result of fraud or corruption. And the issue at the heart of Masemola's charges is whether or not he acted. Now, we know that he was warned about the dubious nature of Cat Matlala before the tender was awarded, and he was told that it was likely going to be sent to that company. After that, when we started writing about it, once the tender was awarded, and now suspended Police Minister Senzo Mkhwanazi ordered a probity audit, and that audit returned clear red flags to say there's issues of fronting, there's a prima facie case that needs to be criminally investigated. At that point, Fani Masemola was, he was enjoined to act against that. The auditors found that the contract should be cancelled and any money that had been spent thus far should be declared as irregular. The issue is that he took 103 days after he was publicly warned to cancel the tender to actually cancel it. And in the intervening time, Matlala was paid another 30 million rand. So this is about accountability for the head of the police. And, I've seen some in some public quarters say, well, the PFMA is, it's unprecedented to see an accounting officer charged. That is true. The issue is that we hold our public office bearers to such a perilously low standard that it actually beggars belief that the PFMA or the MFMA have not been brought to bear more prominently sooner than this. And I would argue that if ever there was an example to be made, it's of Fani Masemola. And if he's innocent, the court will prove that and he will walk. But the issue is that did he act within his powers in a reasonable manner to prevent the misspending of at least 30 million rand, at most 50 million rand. And I think that's the rub in this case, Graeme.
Perfect. I think we'll leave it there, Jeff. Thanks so much for your time, for updating us on the very latest on the lead on News 24 today. Of course, a saga close to watch. I'm looking forward to what's coming next in relation to understanding a little bit more who Mike van Wyk is and the various franchises that make up this Medicare 24 group and how it plays, an integral part in this larger picture. I'm looking forward to the future reporting on that matter. Thanks so much, Jeff. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Graeme.
You're listening to the latest edition of The Lead on News 24 with Graeme Rowenheimer. If you've got an opinion on what you've heard so far, drop us a short voice note on our WhatsApp hotline. That's 072 562 3179. Buying a car? Let driving with J9 steer you right.
The reason why I wanted you in today is because I want to talk about car sales. You were in that space for a few years as a salesman.
News 24's motoring podcast, hosted by Janine van der Post, delivers sharp car advice, expert test drives.
Nowadays, when somebody, for the most part, when somebody walks into a dealership, they know sometimes more about the car than the salesperson does because of the access to information.
Yeah. The latest trends and motorsport interviews, all in one smooth ride.
But these are basic questions that people really need to know. And I think at the end of the day, you just really need to do your homework.
Catch Driving with J9 on News 24 or wherever you get your podcasts. Trending topic.
Moving to our trending topic and an update of sorts from a previous edition last week. And please note, listeners' discretion is strongly advised here. Now charged with murdering and dismembering her beloved older sister, 63-year-old Aletta Rose returned to face a Bellville magistrate in Cape Town this Monday. But Rose, via her legal aid, instructed the courts that not only does she not want to be referred for mental observation, although that's up to prosecutors' discretions, but does not intend to apply for bail either. Now, the pensioner stands accused of killing and cutting up her sister, Connie Constance Scholz, in her sister's Bellville South home some nearly 2 weeks ago. It's understood she stored the 79-year-old's body parts in Tupperware before neighbors felt something was certainly off and alerted Scholz's relatives to barge through the front door. Locals say the pair had not shown any signs of conflict before. In the dock, Rose was motionless, chewing gum before being told to stop. Now, the case is postponed to early May, with Scholz's relatives refusing to comment as they prepared to lay her to rest this weekend. In 1997, it's since emerged, Rose was sentenced to 6 years in prison for the murder of her then brother-in-law. News 24 is pushing to get more details there. Now, for a lot more on this story, check out our March 24th episode with journalist Lisa Lee Solomons entitled Inside the Bellville South House of Horrors. Got something to say about this extremely heinous crime? Drop us a comment below.
And finally,
Ending off now with on this day in 1960, the United Nations Security Council had for the very first time began deliberating apartheid South Africa's racial policies. Now, this, of course, follows the Sharpeville massacre of just a few days prior. That was the 21st of March, when members of the PAC, the Pan-Africanist Congress, had led a peaceful protest against past laws. That was outside a police station near Vereniging. That confrontation led police to opening fire on the crowd, killing some 69 people and injuring nearly 200. The massacre drew swift international condemnation, plummeting Pretoria further into isolation. However, it was many years still until the UN's full effects in terms of economic sanctions and otherwise would come to bear on the South African state. For our question today in Roby's Pointless Braai Quiz, all I asked was give us the new name of the Eastern Cape Metro where protesters ran amok this Monday. Kugompo City is formerly East London. The name change came into effect at the start of 2026. It's an isiXhosa name for the area. It's inspired by the sound of waves crashing against Gompo Rock or Cove Rock. This march that we've been referencing reportedly had issue with an apparent Nigerian king's coronation this week turned violent following the stabbing, it's understood, of one man in the area. More details to emerge over time there. The lead comes out normal times this week, Monday to Thursday at 7 p.m. Note that obviously it's the Easter long weekend, so the lead will not be coming out on Monday as usual, but expect regular programming from Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday next week. Hit like, follow, and subscribe in the meantime. That way you'll be notified of when all of our editions drop. Thanks so much for listening. My name's Graeme Robelheimer, and so long as there's trusted news first, we'll have The Lead on News 24.
New episodes of The Lead air Monday through Thursday at 7 p.m.